Hey, are you following your heart? Has anyone asked you that? Have you asked yourself that? And I guess there's many different ways that that question can be portrayed or thoughts on what it means to follow your heart. But I thought I would take a little bit of time today to talk about that subject, to go over, what it means to be doing that, how you can really figure out whether you are doing that right now, how you can look within to figure out if you're making decisions based on fear or based on what you truly want to be doing. And then how can we move into that process of actually going for what we want, actually following our deepest desires and really doing what it is that we know that we're meant to be doing. So sit tight. This is what this one's all about. I'm so happy you're here. Let's just get into it.
Welcome to the Juggle is Real podcast. I'm your host, Andryanna. A few years ago, burnout nearly cost me that happy, fulfilled life that I'd always dreamed of. Every day left me feeling overwhelmed with stress at work, at home, and just with life in general. I felt like I was constantly running and couldn't catch my breath. So I embarked on a journey of finding better balance, of learning how to prioritize my own needs, of shifting my mindset to live with more ease and balance, of learning how to do more without the pressure of doing it all. And I discovered that letting go of the need for a perfect life opened up opportunities to bring in more joy. So I am sharing my experience and my learnings with you so that you don't have to struggle. I want to show by example how liberating and empowering it can be to silence expectations, to learn how to live through the chaos of work and family with grace, joy, and ease. So what do you think? Are you with me? Let's get started.
Hello, you. I'm happy to be with you right now, today, here in this space with you. And I'm having this conversation because I recently learned the news that one of my favorite TV personalities is leaving TV. And it really made me start thinking about this notion of doing what you feel is right for you and following your heart, and how sometimes that might change and that might shift. And so I wanted to have this chat, and I thought I would share it with you, the things I've been thinking and really unearthing and realizing about myself, and moving forward with these realizations about truly going after what you want and following your heart. What the heck does that mean? So let's talk about this for a few minutes. I mean, there's so many different instances, there's so many different examples of how we have done this or may have not done this in the past. And the example that I just shared, you might be familiar with the morning show in Canada called Breakfast Television. And the co-host, Dina, who is just such a light and such a breath of fresh air in broadcast, such a kind and beautiful soul, truly, truly, truly. And she is stepping down from her role as co-host of Breakfast Television. And you know what? This was a little bit shocking to many people because she's doing such a great job. And not often in an industry like television do you have this option. Usually you are asked to leave, or you are given a given that the decision is made for you. And so Dina has made this decision, and she is truly, truly following her heart, which is taking her in a new direction. And I was really I don't want to say taken aback, but I was really struck by this because I thought it was so beautiful that she was being true to herself. I mean, it is, such an accomplishment to be a co-host and to anchor, the number one national television show in Canada, and what an accomplishment! And she's had a beautiful career, and her audience truly loves her. And I can remember this was not very long ago that I had my first experience on live national television. And I will forever be grateful that it was with Dina. And again, this was not very long ago. And while I've had a lot of experience working in television, I will let you know that I used to do a lot of lifestyle modeling and TV work. If you're familiar with the shopping channel, TSC, if you're in the States, it's QVC. And if you're not in Canada or the US, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a national shopping channel. I used to be there a couple times a month, and I used to do commercial work and all sorts of things. But I recently had my first national television segment experience on live TV, where I was speaking on my own behalf. I was the lifestyle expert and the personality, and I was sharing my insights, my tips, my favorite products and brands for routines that I use. So this was a little bit different. And to say that I was nervous, I mean, of course, this was the first time doing this. So there was, a lot of barriers, like the what ifs and not knowing. And I just remember when it was booked, the segment was booked, and I got the news from my media coordinator, and we didn't know who it would be. There are different personalities and co-hosts and different ways that they run segments. And it was, I think 3 or 4 days, we got the news that it would be Dina who would be running the segment with me. And I can just tell you that there was a wash of gratitude, of joy, and like the fear just left my body, because I knew that it would be great. Not because of me, but because Dina was leading it. And if anything happened, if I forgot what I was supposed to say, or, missed my cue, she would be there and she would, help me through this. And so I say this to you because this is me and how I have been following my heart. And so for someone like Dina, who is a true professional, a true role model, for someone like me who is newer in this industry, it just goes to show you the different levels of how we are at different journeys and on different paths. And the last thing I'll share is that when we did have the segment, the actual morning of the segment, you have to do a number of things prior, and you have to do a sound check, make sure the lighting's okay, make sure everything's working properly. And I was waiting for my segment to begin, and just a few minutes before, during a commercial break, Dina came on, and she further helped put me at ease. And I will say that now, having done a number of different live television segments, I've had different personalities, different types of hosts, and she really put me at ease and really made me feel comfortable, and was so comforting and so friendly. She also asked how to pronounce my name. And so for someone who has had their name mispronounced many times, and I can tell you, I've heard Andryanna Ginkgo, host of The Jungle is real, the struggle is real, so many different ways. It was really meaningful to have someone ask me, how do I pronounce your name, and to repeat it and do it right. So that is my story there. But tying it into following your heart, I mean, I feel like oftentimes we are met with difficult decisions, and sometimes it can be a challenge to make a decision based on what you know is true for you, what is right for you, not based on what other people are wanting, not based on what other people are expecting, not based on what other people might think or what other people might say, or what the repercussions might be. And in order to do that, you have to be really confident and aware of what it is that you are looking for, what it is that is going to be true and right for you. And in order to have this, I feel like there's going to be certain things that you have to put into place. And so I want to talk about that. Before I do, though, I just want to share that my journey has led me to, for the most part, truly leaning in, listening to what my intuition is telling me, what my gut instinct is saying, and that helps me to follow my heart and not listen to the what ifs, or not, tap into fear and worry and doubt. And I I've had so many experiences, but probably one of the biggest ones was leaving my corporate and professional career, which was a number of years ago. And uh, you might be in the same position, you might be in the same boat. And I was working in an environment that was what was lovely. There was nothing, quote unquote, wrong with it. The work that I was doing, again, was lovely. There was nothing wrong with it. But I knew that it wasn't what my heart really truly desired. And I knew that I was meant for a different path. And making that decision to leave that role, not necessarily knowing exactly how I was going to follow my heart and come to the journey that I'm on now, but making that decision was a difficult decision, because I really loved the people I was working for. I loved the clients, and there were so many great attributes and reasons for me to stay, having something steady and reliable and consistent. And you might be thinking these things as well, and you might be reasoning, and you might be making that pros and cons list. And I want you to scrap all of that. And I want you to think about it from the perspective of what you truly, truly want and what you truly, truly desire. And we can go into this in other examples as well. I was recently speaking to another mom friend for a play date, and she recently made the difficult decision to leave her husband and to separate. And they have children, and it's never an easy decision. And this can be met with so many different opinions from others. And sometimes you're hurting others in these decisions that you're making. But at the end of the day, if you are not being true to yourself, then staying at a job that isn't fulfilling, staying in a relationship that is not meaningful for you, staying, in any path or pursuit that is not a full-bodied yes for you, is only going to be to your detriment. And it might not be today, it might not be right now, but not living up to your truest and fullest potential will likely lead to things like getting sick unexpectedly, feeling depression, having those regrets later on in life, and not knowing, feeling that lost feeling because you're on a path that you don't really want to be on. And so that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm having this conversation. Now, Gay Hendricks talks a lot about your zones, and we all have a zone of genius, which would be the highest level, where you're truly following your heart's desires and leading the most fulfilling path that you can be on. And that's not the only zone that we are engaged in. We have a zone of incompetence, a zone of competence, and a zone of excellence. And as a brief recap, your zone of incompetence, of course, those are the areas where you have little knowledge, where someone else is going to be far more capable, and their abilities are going to outshine yours. And, I can use the example of, for me, my zone of incompetence would be like something like accounting, or, things that like I just don't understand and would rather not do it. Surely I could train myself. Surely I could spend hours upon hours crunching numbers and learning formulas, but that is not something that I'm competent in. The next zone would be your zone of competence, which means that you have the ability, you have the know-how, you have the skill, but it's not something that you enjoy doing. It's not something that you look forward to doing at all. The next zone would be your zone of excellence. And this one is the tricky one, because this is something that you do excel in. This is something that you are good at. This is something that perhaps other people praise you for. This can be where a lot of us get stuck in our career. And this is where I was when I'm talking about my corporate job. I was working in advertising and marketing, and I loved, relationship building, and I loved many aspects of my job. and I excelled in, and I did a great job in this role, but it wasn't my true passion. And this is where we get to the zone of genius, where you can tap into your highest potential, what you are truly meant to do, what you do better than most people around you. And this is not something that no one else in the world can do, although for some it might be. But this is something that you can truly get lost in, something that you can do that is, you could spend the entire day doing it if given the choice. And this is where we should be following our hearts and going after what we truly desire. But sometimes we don't even know what our zone of genius is, and it takes a little bit of work to uncover what that is. And then the other thing is that sometimes we're a little bit afraid, or we doubt ourselves, or we think, well, my zone of genius is binge watching Netflix and drinking rosé. But truthfully, if anything were possible, and anything is possible, if you could tap into that, then the options are endless and truly limitless. So I tell you this because when it comes to following your heart, you might be asking yourself, how do I do this? And so I want to just share, just for a few minutes, and hopefully this is where you can, after this, you can spend maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops, doing some digging, doing some uncovering, and perhaps putting a little plan together, cultivating some mindfulness so that you can think about and start acting towards following your heart. And I just wanted to share that it really comes down to mindfulness. And we've talked about mindfulness before. We've had author Shonda Morales, who actually wrote a book on 5-minute mindfulness, talking about what this is. But really, to be mindful means to be able to just tap in and sink down below all of the external stuff, one level deeper than what those thoughts are that are always running through your head, or what those fears are, or what you think other people are thinking about you. And it just coming into yourself and being still and just being a little bit quieter and noticing how your body is responding and reacting to what's happening. So when you can tune in to listen first and foremost to your heart, you're separating your thoughts from what is that subtle way that your body is telling you yes or no. And if you've never done this before, it might be good to do this in small ways, to think about, what you truly want, and it could be like on something routine, like on a Friday night, you're used to pulling out a bottle of wine or grabbing a bag of chips. It might just be tuning in for a second, literally 5 seconds, and putting your hand to your heart or onto your stomach and just saying, what do I want? Do I want this glass of wine, or in the afternoon, do I want this second cup of coffee, or am I just used to doing this? And the answer might be yes. And, goodness sakes, whatever it's telling you, but making the decision, or do I want, steak or chicken, or it's doing this in small ways with your dinner choices, your beverage choices, your activity choices, tuning in and listening on how you're making those decisions. Is it from the doubts and the fears, or is it from truly what you want? Because most of our stress, most of our anxiety, the indecision, if you have a hard time actually making those decisions, having doubts around all of this, oftentimes it's rooted in fear. So you're actually coming from that place from fear instead of what you truly, truly want. Not knowing what the outcome's going to be, or assuming a negative outcome, or thinking of the worst possible scenario. So these are some ways that we're blocking ourselves from actually following our heart, is when we are rooting ourselves in fear versus in love, versus in asking, well, anything is possible, right? It is totally possible. So what is it that I truly want versus what do I think others want of me? Or what do I think is the safest situation, the safest scenario, the safest outcome? Because if we're engaged in fear, even just in our head, in our thoughts, we're trying to defend ourselves from those negative outcomes. So if you're saying like, oh, well, what do I truly want out of my career, my relationship? If we're rooted in fear, then we're making decisions not based on what we truly want, but what was based on protecting ourselves from usually false, usually not true scenarios or situations that could potentially occur, right? Instead of grounding ourselves within in hope and faith in our own self-confidence. And you can listen to last week's episode on self-awareness and self-confidence and self-love. When you're doing this, when you're coming from a place of love, then you'll be able to really tap into following your heart. So, how do we do this? How do we follow our hearts? I think, a great saying, and I don't know who said this, but when we are thinking about the past, we are acting out of fear. When we're thinking from the future, we're acting out of anxiety. But when we are thinking and acting from the present, that is when we're truly acting from a place of love. So I think the number one step in actually following your heart is to get quiet, my friend, is to stop and pause and just give yourself a few minutes and ask yourself that question of, what do I truly want and how can I follow my heart? What is my heart telling me? What do I truly, truly want? And if something comes up for you, then ask yourself why. Why do I want that? And then, maybe going through that mental checklist, is it because of what other people are expecting of me? Is it because of what other people might think of me? Is it coming from a place of fear or anxiety? And if the answer is yes, then is that truly what you want? And if the answer is no, then maybe you can dig a little deeper on what it is that you want. Maybe you can jot that down and write some notes about it and really unearth that want and what that would mean for you. So as we are following our hearts, I want you to think of the feeling that you get as well. The feeling that you get when you are in a place and in a space that you truly love and truly enjoy, that you can get lost in it. And ask yourself when the last time you did get lost in that feeling of being completely satisfied, completely at home with yourself, in your body, in the space that you're in the time that you're in. When was that and what were you doing? And so if you're kind of trying to figure out what you truly desire, some of these questions might help you in kind of unlocking that within. And the more that you can sort of dig and be quiet and put those thoughts down, I think the more that we're able to follow our heart. So once you've reached this point, once you're at this place where you're actually listening to those tiny little voices, those little inklings, those little nudges that might be your intuition, that gut instinct, trying to lead you and direct you and help you in opening up your heart space to allow for you to follow that path of your truest desires. I want you to do two things. Once you have unearthed a desire, a want, a truth for you, I want you to make the decision that you will follow it. And I'm not saying to do anything rash, like quit your job or, leave a relationship or, completely walk away from something. That's probably not the answer in this exact moment that you make the decision. But in making the decision, I want you to decide that you will follow this path of getting closer and fulfilling your desire in following your heart. And making the decision is going to be the first step in so many different ways, because it's not a what if anymore. It is now an I am statement. So I am following my heart by, and then you can fill in the blank. I am leading my true purpose of, fill in the blank. And by making that decision, it means that you are within yourself deciding that you are worth it. You are worthy of whatever it is that your heart desires, and you are coming closer to it. And this signals to the universe, to source, whatever you call it, that this path is now open, that you have opened the door to this opportunity, and you are open to seeing things around you, allowing opportunities to come to you that will bring you closer to following your heart and creating this new reality for yourself. And then the second thing that I'm asking of you in terms of how you can follow your heart. So step one is to make the decision to do it. And step two is going to be to commit to it and make it a priority. And again, nothing rash. We're not, leaving our jobs or doing anything that's going to take extreme amounts of time. But when you can commit to it and make it a priority, it means that you are creating space to allow yourself to think about it more, to dream about it further, to visualize yourself doing the thing that you are meant to be doing, to tap into that zone of genius and have ideas come to you. And by making it a priority, it means that perhaps instead of taking those few minutes that you have to binge watch on Netflix, or instead of starting your day by filling the dishwasher or vacuuming, you're going to take those 15 minutes and you're going to explore that new possibility. Take that time to delve into it a little bit deeper. And they might be just short pockets at first, but as the ideas come to you, as the opportunities come to you, you will see how you can expand on it and you can grow on it. And yes, there'll be time for filling the dishwasher and keeping your floors clean. And maybe you're going to reach out to ask for some support in ways that perhaps you didn't need it in the past, or in ways that you were too afraid to ask for in the past, to allow yourself to have the space to actually create and think and act on your heart's desires. So I will leave you in this space, but I will say that from a person who was always wondering and worried about what others would think of me, from the person who was always afraid of what it would mean to let everyone know what it was that I wanted to do, from the place of having a fulfilling career path that allowed stability, that allowed some flexibility, that allowed some purpose, saying that my path and my journey was going to be taking me elsewhere was a terror barrier that I had to walk through. Like, you just have to blast through that wall like the Kool-Aid man. But once you're on the other side of it, I promise you, looking backwards, it is so much better. It is so much more fulfilling. And it is so much more worthwhile to know that you are being true to yourself, that your path, you are on that journey, and the work that you're doing, the relationships that you're in, the time that you're spending becomes so much more valuable and so much more purposeful when you're doing it from a place and a space of from your heart and your wants and your desires, versus acting out of fear or doubt or anxiety. And it might not be something that you're going to be flipping the switch and changing right away. But I offer you these insights and I offer you these stories and I tell you about, the experiences that I've had, because if I can do it, if I can be the person who is afraid of confrontation, afraid of risk, afraid of other people's opinions. If I can do it, then I know with 100% certainty, my friend, that you can too. So I wish you all the best as you turn inwards, as you listen to your intuition, as you let your heart and your gut guide you in that direction. And even if you are already on this path, if you feel like you are really, truly working in your zone of your zone of genius, I feel like the more that we can continue to tap in and open our heart and be quiet and be in tune to what those desires are, the better this whole world is going to be. We will be happier. We will be more content, more fulfilled. We will be more generous, more grateful. And geez, isn't that how the world goes round and is just a better place to live and love and be? So, my friend, this is where this episode ends. I wish you so much love. Please share this with some friends. Please share this to your stories on Instagram. Tag me at Andryanna G. That's AndryannaG. Take a few seconds to rate it. Write me a quick review. Head into that podcast player and scroll downwards. Hit that 5-star. Tell me what you're thinking about this episode or one of your favorites. It means the world to me, especially that you're here spending time with me. Until the next episode, take good care.